Today, I'm together with Rebecca and Sarah from Urban Body San Jose, and both of them are gyrotonic specialists with a multiple year experience. And I wanted to talk about with them about gyrotonics and how can it help you for your ballroom dancing journey, and just in general, what is gyrotonics and how can it help you for your fitness or maybe injury prevention or increasing your mobility. So why don't you guys tell a little bit about yourself and how did you maybe get into the gyrotonics and things like that?
Okay. I first discovered Gyrotonic as a way of cross training while I was a ballet dancer. Um, for me, I tend to be a little too aware of my body, so more stiff jointed, I would say. And so I needed something that would help me stretch, that would help me feel like I can reach my end points in all of the movements I was doing. And so we actually ended up doing duets at Urban Body, and we started that journey there, and then got in, liked it, like loved it a lot. Saw how much it could prevent me from, I would say, not knowing my body or not knowing what I'm capable of. And it helped me understand how to use my body for what I've been asked to do. And so after doing Gyrotonic for a while, I decided to get certified in it and then continued that journey. And here I've been teaching for about 4 years now. 4 years.
So.
And yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. 4 years now. And
Cool.
yeah. That's how I got
Yeah,
into
we
it.
kind of did everything together because we danced at the same small company. And during the pandemic, they brought in some people to work with us on different kinds of injury prevention because that was a very challenging part of like not being in the studio and then jumping back into training hard. And so we had somebody come and do a gyrotonic class. I think it was Naomi Sailors,
On
who
a
also
stool.
works with us.
Yeah.
And even doing like an online class felt like I felt things that I hadn't felt before. I felt stretching that I hadn't felt before. I felt mobility. Things opened up. I could breathe really well. That was a really big draw. And then it just sort of snowballed from there. We went in for classes and I'm a very flexible, hypermobile person. And so I struggled a lot with injuries related to extreme mobility. And I've had hip injuries, I've had ankle injuries. And so what I love about Gyrotonic and what really drew me into it was that I could learn. It was a safe way to explore my full range of motion and to learn the ways that I can use it and the ways that I can stay safe, working through it. Whereas I think some other modalities, I love other forms of cross training too, like Pilates is super helpful for me as well. But there's something really unique about how Gyrotonic takes us to kind of the limits of what our body can do so that we know where those limits are. Like I feel more confident when I'm working with Gyrotonic as a part of my practice. I feel more confident in daily life as well as my dance life.
That's very interesting. So why don't we go into the first question that I have for you guys? And you kind of already touched upon it, like how does gyrotonic differ from Pilates or yoga? Some similarities, some differences. What do you think?
So Gyrotonic in itself is a 360 degree movement.
It's circular.
More circular. It really focuses on the nervous system because there's a breath aspect as well. And
like lots of different kinds of breaths. So Pilates has breathing as well, but Gyrotonic has some breaths that are meant to upregulate your nervous system and get you into a more activated state, and then some that are meant to calm you back down, which really helps. We were just talking about how that helps access different certain muscles really respond differently to your emotional and nervous system state. For instance, the psoas, which is a really important muscle for all kinds of dancing. And so it can really tighten up if you've been in a fight or flight state for a long time. So coming in for a session where you're using your breath to down regulate can really change how you move. It can immediately change how you're moving.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Also, possibly it can help you also relax and kind
yes,
of
yes,
cool down a bit and kind of regenerate, right? If you had like a very active
Like a
period.
really tangible thing that relates directly to, for instance, for ballet dancers, if my psoas is really tight and locked up and I've been in stressful rehearsals and someone has been screaming at me all day long, I
I see.
can't.
Who is that?
But
just the world. No.
I can't turn out. At the end of that week or that day, I lose range of motion in my hips, which is vital for your health as a dancer and for your longevity. You need access to healthy turnout. And if my psoas is super tight, I feel so locked up and I can't turn out. And so having a regimen where I would come in during weeks where that was going on, I would be able to directly use that breathing and that calming. I could like target it where it's going to affect my body and figure out how to use my breath, combine it with release work that you're doing with a ball or something, and pinpoint where you are sending that release energy and how you are using that to shape how you're going to be able to move out after the session. Yeah.
Nice. So I guess sounds like gyrotonics can be used as a sort of an active stretch, right? To sort of exercise your body, but also stretch it and release the unnecessary tension in some parts of the body.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's stretch bias,
Mhm.
which means that it does help you elongate through your own body.
And a lot of eccentric muscle work. So
Right.
a lot of muscle work in stretch. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess sounds like that would be such a benefit for dancers in general, right? Because we need to always hit these lines, right? Which must be long and beautiful, right? So when you're tight, you can't get there, right?
Exactly.
Even people, because it helps you decompress. So one of the things we do is we have what we call a balanced arch, a balanced curl. So you're working with the spine and having it move in its natural ability. So as a human, your spine should be able to go in and out of certain movements without, you should be able to reach down to grab something off the floor without pulling a muscle, right? So having to work in gyrotonic to help you understand, okay, when is this motion of my spine elongating? And then how can I take that elongation of my spine, bend it forward in contrast with the rest of my body, and then return back to its natural state. So it helps elongate, stretch within the body, as well as give you that feedback and strengthening. So it's a lot of things. I don't know. We may not be explaining it correctly, but it's just there's so many benefits to it.
Learning the small ranges of motion that that we might not normally have time to focus on or articulate.
For example, what do you mean by that?
Well, I can think of, as you were just saying, the balanced arch and balanced curl. Many people, if you ask them to create like an arch to look up and to arch their pelvis forward and have this crescent shape, there will be portions of their spine that aren't participating in that motion, and they don't feel that at all. So it's learning those small adjustments that we can make to a movement that make it a more full expression and incorporate all of the muscles and joints, so that we're not stressing out one joint, or one section of the spine is not taking on the load, while if it was a more even distribution, those joints would all carry that load together.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I see also in my students, when they are, mostly I work with adults, and then they need to, for example, for ballroom dancing, they need to have this shape, in the body, sort of make this kind of a look, which is kind of modern, right? So I think that exercise would be such a beneficial thing because, like you said, I would see they're trying, right? But some, like usually in this area, it's and they try to do the neck, but then they'll get a neck pain.
Yeah.
So then I need to try to dial them back, and exactly like you said, engage.
Yeah.
Every body part just does a little thing, and then in the end, it's a beautiful line, right?
Right. And that makes me think of another thing that's a bit different. Gyrotonic is very expressive as well. it is meant to incorporate like that line that you were just showing, that kind of like
that's literally
bow and
the
arrow.
balanced arch. Like that's what we talk about. That's the
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
related, I feel like, to natural body language. Like that is a natural expression, like how our body processes certain emotions, right? That's a very proud feeling. That's a very
elegant,
extroverted, or dignified position to be in. And so I think it's really important. Sometimes it's like our body has locked off access to feeling those things genuinely. And so there's something super therapeutic about having an instructor work with you one-on-one to restore if you don't feel proud naturally and there's some block there that, you know, perhaps it's just muscular restriction, or perhaps it's that you genuinely don't feel proud most of the time and you're not sure how to bring that into your physicality. So yeah, it's a very interesting process, and that's something that we do work on in Gyrotonic too.
That's nice. Yeah, exactly. It could be mental, could be emotional, sort of a thing within yourself that then manifests in the body over time, creates this tension.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So Gyrotonics can help to sort of release and
it's a safe
process
place
that.
to play around with that and to figure out,
to really be internal too. The work itself is very internal. So it also gives people the ability to just kind of shut off the outer experience and be very internal. So can you feel the length in your spine? Not can you see it, right? A lot of the times in dancing, you know, we have mirrors or whatever, we're asked to look in the mirror for something. And that's okay too, because people are visual learners as well. But when we're specifically at Urban Body, we don't really have that many mirrors. Especially for Gyrotonic, it's very internal first. So you want to feel your what is the term? Shannon uses, the owner of it. Is
it the integrity thing?
No, how it informs the brain instead of like one
body to mind,
Yes,
versus mind to body, which is a very interesting thing to think about. So you're, instead of telling your body a shape you want it to make, you are moving through something and experiencing it, and then letting the sensations that you feel, the disconnection, the support, the lack of support, let that inform how you're going to change that movement. So the body tells the mind what it needs, and then you change your movement from there, rather than in a discipline like a ballroom dance class, I'm sure or a lesson, you are being told a shape that you need to make, or a way that you need to improve the shape you're making, and then you think of that image in your mind, and then you try to match your body to it. So it's very different.
Yeah, I don't know.
Different.
Does that make sense?
No, makes total sense. Yeah. So that's what I also encounter in many of my students, that they would see a body shape and try to make the body shape, but they are not entirely aware how is it made, because the way how it looks, it's not how it's made.
Yes.
Right.
So I'm sure, in the ballet and other dances, the same, there's this kind of like a trick going on, which is this beautiful line. But
sometimes if we get too off course from that, and the internal experience is so unaligned from the external, you can be watching someone who looks beautiful, but they feel terrible inside. Maybe their joints feel bad. Maybe their spirit doesn't feel so good in that movement or in that dance. And so that's a very interesting, I bet that's very much the same across ballet and ballroom.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think are the most common injuries that you see dancers come into your studio and kind of complain about?
Ankles, knees, and
probably back.
Ankle,
knees, and back. And then for ballet, there's the
turnout.
There's a turnout, so you can have a lot of, but those tend to be less. I would say, I mean, you can correct me on this because you're the hypermobile one, but I would say that for majority, it's ankles, knee, back pain. And then for male dancers, all of those still apply, but then also shoulders because they're having to lift people. Or in any whatever company you're in, you know, if you're lifting people above your head or if you're lifting people in general, you're going to have the shoulder joint is probably an injury that would be more common.
Yeah.
So why do you think it occurs, and how can Gyrotonic help to prevent that?
I think it's proprioception.
I think it's a proprioception.
Your awareness, and also kind of what differs in the way that I kind of rehabilitate in the Gyrotonic studio after an injury versus like with most PTs, you are going to work in isolation with most physical therapists. If you have an ankle sprain, you're going to work on your ankle. And the issue is that the body, yes, we need to learn how to move that joint well, but then it's like many of the rules kind of go out the window once you're in a very complex movement that's incorporating everything in the body. So I think having a holistic training approach through Gyrotonic, which is circular movements that allow the fluidity that is going to be required in your dancing, like that's where re-injury was was a struggle for me, because I would go and do these very linear movements with a PT, these very isolated movements, and then it could only get me so far. It would only apply so far to what I was doing,
in dancing.
Day. Yeah.
The proprioception is a very important part.
Yeah. I think.
What does that mean?
Feeling where your body is in space. So learning how to sense while you're doing a very complex, coordinated whole body movement, learning to sense the placement of each joint, and whether you're sort of
aware of it.
Yeah. Whether you're using good patterning in those joints through a wide variety of movements, and learning how to sort of create those patterns and habits in the body, learning to pair them together across the whole body. So it's not just like, I know how to do a calf rise with proper form, but it's like, I know how to do a turning jump, and this very complicated motion. I know how to apply those same principles through a movement that feels entirely different.
Because you know where your body is in space. So yeah, understanding where your body is in space. So
yeah,
a lot of the times if we're making shapes, like even for ballroom dancers, if you're having to have this nice expressive upper body, right? If I had you close your eyes and then all of a sudden told you to make that, is your arm going to be right here in front of your chest? Or do you not have the awareness in your body to know where that arm is going to be? Mm-hmm. So it's essentially,
at what point does it leave your awareness?
Right.
And I just remembered too, it's also the fascia being conditioned. So because you're doing these full body movements, you're tensioning the fascia, you're conditioning the fascia in ways that you're not. So that's been really important for me, because there are certain movements that we don't need to muscle through. And after injury, you're more likely to muscle through it because, you don't have, for instance, you may not have the ligament strength anymore. There may be laxity in those ligaments. But if you condition not just the muscles, but the coordination of the muscles, and then over more time, lots of time, the fascia to...
what is the fascia again?
The fascia is like the connective tissue. The fascia is my favorite.
I know, you've got her.
It's your favorite, yeah? Okay, here we go.
It's this, I think it's now classified as an organ.
Yeah, finally, after many
which maybe studies. We should check that though. But it's the connective tissue.
Okay, I'm not going to quote you on that.
This web-like material that I believe connects our muscles and our organs, and it's kind of like the stuff in between everything else. And it ends up becoming like this whole body web that's all around us, and it can congeal, it can thicken together, and it can have different qualities. It can slide, it can bounce, it can be something. So you might watch a dancer and they look so smooth and elegant, and I would be willing to bet that the dancer who performs explosive jumps but looks so smooth and elegant, that they're using the power of their fascia to bounce, to have this rebounding quality through their fascia to carry some of that momentum and
Yeah.
that energy rather than just straight muscling through. So yeah, it's this thing that like
supports
when
your whole joints.
When we roll out, we hydrate the fascia. When we hydrate the fascia, we have more slide within it, and we have more flexibility. You can have instantaneous flexibility results, like improvement, just by hydrating the fascia. It's the thing that has immediate effects. And then over time, if your fascia is hydrated, and you keep up a routine where you're keeping the you're warming up well, you're rolling out well, you're keeping the elasticity, you'll see your movement change, your abilities change, your lines change. And then the fascia has a memory, so it will stay that way over time. The more you
train it. That's what's cool, is that you can train your fascia.
Yeah. But it's difficult to measure. Yeah. So it's very new that they're something that they're studying.
Yeah. Definitely, I kind of agree with you about the physical therapy, that it's very like usually one-dimensional, meaning, or like some of them are more, but some of those exercises are, we're going to target this one group of muscles, and maybe that's the one that needs training. And there's some place for that, but I agree that in dancing we sort of put together so many planes of motion all at once, and there's legs and arms and different rotation and different inclination and all of that happening all at once, so that you need, I think Gyrotonics is really good for that you can sort of learn to, in a kind of slow environment and controlled environment, combine and teach your body how to combine these, like you were just before talking about the joints, like you think you're using it in one way, but then actually you're not, and you're like, oh, I thought I did it, but because there's so many things that go on, in a dance, in a turn, in a jump, and then let's say there's two people dancing,
right?
Even more difficult, right?
Yeah. Then not only do you have to know have your own proprioception, right? Then you also have to have that understanding of, how do I sense things moving in space, right? Because you're with someone else. That's like,
how do I be reactive, and responsive to things that they might do that are unexpected too?
Yeah. And the body's connected. It's a whole thing. It's not, my ear doesn't exist by itself. It's connected to, my face connected to my, like, it's a whole body. So when you're looking at injuries or anything like that, you have to approach the whole body. So.
Yeah. So there's this another question I wrote down, like many dancers push through pain, and how can Gyrotonics help them develop the body awareness and prevent overuse?
Yeah.
Have you done that yourselves? I mean, I know that I have done sometimes. Oh, my knee kind of hurts, but it's going to be fine, and just keep pushing,
Part of it is environment and culture, right? That's kind of the culture behind when you're in dance or even sports, right? Like, that's the culture, is competition, but also you're working so hard for something that you want. And so if the environment you're in doesn't allow you or give you the ability to take care of yourself, then you are forced to disregard that. And I know you have a really good example of this, because you were teaching yesterday and you were talking about this with your student. But it's a very important tool to have, to be able to say, oh, something hurts, so I should actually rest it and then come back and be better. But if your environment doesn't allow you to do that, you will have to push through. And then at the end of the day, your body, I always say, your body is there to protect you. Like, our bodies are made to help us survive until our end days. And then you're, whatever you believe in, you die, whatever. Like, our bodies are here to help us. So at the end of the day, if we keep pounding it, our body will respond back, and then it'll take us out. So whether it's an injury, whether it's something that happens, it's our body's way of taking back power, essentially. So I don't know.
Being protective.
Being protective. Yeah.
I think that Gyrotonic, because it doesn't necessarily have an exterior goal, like it doesn't have an appearance or a look or a shape that we're going for necessarily. We can use that to guide, but a really great master trainer said that she thinks Gyrotonic's guiding theme is moving with integrity. rather than moving with correctness or moving like there is no perfect form necessarily that we're looking for. There's just an integrity in our intentionality in the movement, thinking the right way as we do the movement, and being really present as we do the movement. And so I think that teaches you the skill and the value of listening for all the different sensory input our body can give us about our health and maybe where our limits should be for the day. So nerve pain or nerve stretch that can be good, or feeling like, a catch in your hip or something that you're like, oh, okay, should be mindful of that. That part is talking to me. Just kind of the community within Gyrotonic has developed that culture as well, where if you're working out together or if you're working with a trainer, they use all these phrases like, is this body part talking to you? Is this part being loud today or something? Learning like, okay, I feel something. Now I have to kind of listen more and figure out, is this a sensation that's like, I am stretching through something that's helpful and productive, or I'm doing something that is now piling on too much strain, and tomorrow I'm not going to be able to enjoy this movement again because I'll be in pain tomorrow from doing this. So it kind of
equips you. Yeah, it gives you tools.
It makes you a good listener. Yeah. Makes you a good listener. So you can at least hear it. And then you can figure out what you want to do. If you want to, push through because you have a competition that's once in a lifetime and you need to go for it, versus, if it's just a training session and you could back off and, gives you the tools to listen.
Yeah, sounds like it's kind of like a maintenance session, right? Which would be great for any kind of a performance when you use your body up to such a limit,
Mm-hmm.
And then you come into Gyrotonics and you sort of kind of just listen and move through, and I kind of feel here, and okay, there's something I need to address, or I kind of feel this, and this is kind of tight,
Right.
And then you can kind of regenerate, listen to yourself, and then relax.
Yeah.
It sort of can serve as a sort of like a maintenance, like for a car. You need to check everything works, everything's good,
Yes.
brakes, whatever, tires, oh good, okay, carry on. And sometimes if you don't plan for it, it just piles up, and you sort of kind of stretch and you sort of kind of relax. But I think Gyrotonics is sort of this dynamic, I'm sure there's many applications to it, but it can be this dynamic relaxation and dynamic observation of yourself, right?
Yes, right. Yeah. And the observation of yourself, and then the environment that you're put in is allowing you to be vocal and allowing you to take ownership of your body. So if you come in and you're hurting, I'm not going to make you do something that's going to hurt you anyway, because the goal is for you to take care of you, not for me to see an outcome from you.
Yeah. So for us working with ballet dancers, that's a really important thing, because we're often working with very young people who are being prepared to have a career that launches at like 18 years old. So you've been trained, from a child, very young child, to be quiet about your injuries, because often you'll be punished for having injuries. And so we take the time to make sure that they, I don't know if it's the same in the ballroom dance community, but that's an unfortunate tradition that has come about. And so we really try to take the time to kind of push them to express their preferences, to just say like, do you want to do this exercise or this exercise? So they can learn to use their voice, with an instructor, an authority figure, and learn that they get to make some choices and that there is value to listening.
And what they have to say, and to take care of
to
their
listening
body.
to their body and then advocating for it, because no one else can hear the things that you can hear from your body, and no one else is going to say anything about it. Especially when you're working in a company, it's you have to say something, and it can be the difference between your career ending in an instant or having a long and successful, happy career.
I guess it's always such a delicate balance between performance and health, right? Especially when you get so high up into your human ability and you're kind of pushing against the limits and you're trying to expand the limits, right? it's great that you can have people that can sort of balance it out. Okay, let's push, but let's relax. Let's
Mhm.
don't be crazy.
There's
Yeah.
a time for
So
everything,
Yeah.
everything in its
Mhm.
season.
Yeah, kind of like, for example, if a dancer wanted to incorporate gyrotonic in their practice or their sort of lifestyle, how often do you think they should do it?
Oh, I would say that kinesis at home, gyrokinesis, which is like the mat work and the stool work, and it's pretty accessible. I would say you can do that every day. You can do that like as a warm up or a cool down. You can do it before bed to really bring your nervous system down and reset your resting tension in your body, settle your mind. And I think that would be phenomenal. And then coming in for gyrotonic in the studio, I think like ideally a few times a week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
3 times a week.
Is not always
Yeah.
accessible, but especially if you're at many dance companies have gyrotonic towers or they have
They're starting
facilities
to now, yeah, which
Mhm.
is nice. But
So if that's available to someone and they're just not using it, I would encourage them, like, get in there, go a few times a week at least and take advantage.
but like anything else, you won't know if it'll work for you until you try it. So at the very least, like, try it out and see. Yeah.
Because the pulley tower is not going to really fatigue you, like the unit you have behind you. It's
That one.
pretty
Yeah.
hard. I mean, you can do anything can be overdone, but it's a pretty gentle system. So it's something you can use pretty often.
You can use it as a warm up. You can use it as a cool down.
Help
you can
your
use
tracking.
you can use it to focus on a specific thing you want to work on. And then, yeah.
Like, for example, what could be like a specific thing that it's very common to maybe use this tower?
Well, I mean, because it has the spiral motions. For someone, I have scoliosis. So for me, it's really important to make sure that my body is working as evenly as it can possibly work. So the handle unit that you have behind you allows you to, it can be adjusted. So the length can be shortened or it can be adjusted. So if my left side is compressed, I can elongate it just by moving the handle out and then reaching my body longer because of that, because I have that ability from the handle. And so I don't know, like it would help you make sure that you're using both sides of your body equally.
Feeling the
Kind of the spine, right? You're doing this motion,
Yes.
circular motion.
Yeah, if you're doing a circular motion and one side is a little tighter, or for myself, I started by lengthening one side a little longer than the other. So it seems uneven, but to the body, you're evening it out because that's how your body is put together.
How it's compensating and you're realigning.
Yeah. So
I think it's great also for just resetting the kind of, I guess, I don't know if this is the term, but like neural tension, like we tend to get very tight and compressed in our spine because, we have these long muscles, these ropey muscles on either side, and they tighten up and they pull all the vertebrae together. And then your abdominals are also compressing, pulling all the vertebrae together. And we use those a lot when we're dancing. So, and if our form's not so good, we might be using them for postural support as well. External muscles that compress. So to me, the handle unit feels very important to incorporate at least a few times a week. And if I was still dancing professionally, every day, because it's super gentle. It's a great way to lengthen out and figure out where those areas of the spine are getting, or the muscles are getting a little tight. And when I turn this way, I just can't reach as far as on the other side. And then when you finish, it's kind of like you can do a self massage through movement.
Yeah.
And then you come off and you're like, oh, okay, now my legs can go back to their usual, I can kick high. I can,
it's almost like
I regain my flexibility in my hips and my joints, my limbs, because my spine is opened up. That feels very important each day to make sure things are as open as possible.
So it's almost like you're the canvas, and then you're resetting the body to be able to do what you're asking it to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
Or
ironing out the creases.
Yeah, or you're undoing whatever harm it's been done to it throughout the day. So you're either using it, if you use it to decompress from your day, or if you use it to start your day. Either way, it's great.
Yeah. I think, yeah, Gyrotonic is such an interesting tool to have this balance between like effortlessness and sort of effort, right? And sort of kind of, like sometimes in dancing, right? It's not like weightlifting, right? But it is an effort, right? So there's this like gyrotonic, right? So tone,
Right.
it's in kind of in the name, right? So there needs to be this play between what kind of tone you have in the body.
Right.
It's sort of sometimes more tone and sometimes less tone, and I
Yeah.
think Gyrotonic can help to learn how much tone is necessary for what kind of movement.
Oh, that's exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Like you have dials on all your muscles and you're learning how much, and you're learning when dials get turned up really high and you just don't notice. And you're like walking around your day with your back gripped all day long and you don't realize. And then what a difference it makes to learn how to release those muscles that get turned on. And also looking at the tone that contrasts. So that if your back body is very tight, but your front body is very loose, learning how balance between those two things is important, and what your tendencies are. Like, what do I tend to use first? And is that what I want to use first? Actually, when I am learning about my optimal movement, what is going to be the most supportive to my goals? So learning how to sense the difference between areas that should be contrasting each other and creating strength through opposition, and learning when one is kind of winning that tug of war always. And
I think Gyrotonic is such a nice tool for just a healthy body. I think sometimes that is sort of goes into the background. When we dance, we want to be fast, we want to be sharp, we want to be whatever long. And then we realize, okay, my knees are kind of giving out. I mean, at whatever age, and you think, and then I'm thinking, why would people do that themselves, right? In the long game, I mean, you need your knees and your back for the next, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 years.
Exactly.
But it's hard to know. I think, again, for me, that comes back to, the environment you're in. So if you're in a studio that you're not able to, or have been given allowance to say, my knee hurts today, so I will, I'm sure you call it this too in any dance, like we mark. So that means instead of doing the movement full out, I will mark the musicality. I'll listen to the musicality. I'll do my arms full out, but I won't do my legs full out because my knee's hurting. And I want to be able to come back tomorrow and maybe be able to do the movement. Or if the show's in a week, I want to make sure that I recover in time to be able to do the show. So there's many ways that you can listen to the music, you can visualize yourself dancing on stage. There's many ways to be a part of the rehearsal or the class without having to do the class and the rehearsal. To push yourself farther and breaking your knees or whatever whatever's going on in your body. But it's hard. It's hard when you're an athlete who is working to strive for a dream. It's hard to step back and say, it's scary.
And the pressure is like contagious. So I assume with ballroom, is there like some community feel to it, or is it just you and your partner and your coach?
No, there's a studio. There are many couples in the studio, or in the same, let's say, Bay Area, right? Okay, one couple there, and I'm kind of in the ballpark, so we kind of compete against each other, and we would see each other in the competition. And then in your own studio, there will be a couple of couples that you kind of rival.
Oh, you kind of see. Are you guys like training? Because I know at the ballroom competitions, it's like very different from a ballet competition. Because ballet, it's usually like one dancer on stage, or if there's a group dance, that they've practiced together, like they are all together.
I guess
but ballroom is like the people are dancing around each other, but they're not you have to react to whoever's there, right? You have to be ready to move out of the way or to figure something out. So when you're practicing in the studio, is it that way? Do you guys have
Yeah, you need to have some floorcraft skill. We call them floorcraft skills. So you want to do your routine, but there's somebody there, so you need to be able to not stop, but improvise. Move out of the way, and then maybe weave it back into your routine a little later. For example.
And is it that way even for like competitions? Do you ever have a time to just be with you and your partner performing or competing for an audience, or is it just?
We would have maybe show dance competition. Then it's like a couple just by themselves with their music. Nobody's there. They do a show. And then they bow, and then the next one comes. I think that's probably more like a ballet competition. But like ballroom dancing, there would always be 6 couples in the final, and then they would all dance at once, and then the judges would kind of compare.
So that in itself, to me, sounds a lot more competitive in a certain way, because you're like there with the person on stage, versus for ballet, even in competitions, you go on by yourself. The judges have their full attention on you, and they get to assess you. And then the next person, they're not having to look and compare you right now in the moment to someone else next to you. So that's kind of interesting.
I was thinking about how the mindset is it's like it snowballs in a community if everyone is really like in the mindset of not listening to their body. So for instance, in the context of a ballet company, if one person starts pushing through injury, you hear about it through the grapevine. You're like, wait, didn't so-and-so just do this? Isn't her knee is not okay, right? And then everyone else is like, oh, but she's doing the variation. Okay. And then if they feel something, they're like, okay, well, I got to just go because we're all doing this now and nobody's listening to their body and nobody's telling the director that they need a day off or whatever. And I was just at the PT before her and I heard the PT say to her that she shouldn't do this, but now she's doing it. And so there's kind of that, like, there's also the other side of that where if one person goes and tells the director, like, I can't today, I saw the physio, I've got to rest, I have to be careful, I have to get tennis shoes for this rehearsal, other people will do that as well. And so it's kind of
camaraderie almost, or like we're
it's
teaching
contagious.
Yeah,
like
we're teaching each other
the mindset. So I think that's another value of having another place that you go to cross train, and particularly the culture within Gyrotonic is really helpful for dancers, because maybe you're not going to get that from your community in your studio, unfortunately. And maybe sometimes you will, and it'll be lovely, but maybe sometimes you won't, and you'll have to have another voice in your head that's like, hey, but wait, remember that we want to dance tomorrow and we want to be healthy when we're 90, and should we be lucky enough to live to that,
right
know? So
No, definitely. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's different approaches to the, situation that you are expressing, and different kids and different adults have different preferences. Some might say, oh, it doesn't matter that it hurts. Let's just go for it, go for it. And maybe they develop some kind of, I don't know, like pain in the back for the next 30 years. Maybe they don't, who knows, right? Maybe they're fine, I mean, I'm sure there's some people just biologically, they can take it, they can take a good beating and they're fine. Right. But some people can't. So, so you kind of need to know yourself, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And it's important. Yeah. The more you know yourself and the more that you're able to advocate for yourself, and you're almost teaching the person in the room, or your coach or your teacher or your parent, like you're teaching them that, hey, I am me, I'm not you. So you might be okay to perform with a knee that hurts, but for me and my body, it doesn't want to do that.
Or like that intuition. Sometimes we get that feeling that's like, oh, I've had knee pain before, but like there's this something weird. Like, I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
Yeah. That's like, okay, this is serious. I should stop.
Yeah. You get that little gut feeling that's like, no, I gotta sit down.
And sometimes it takes a while to build that, because our bodies, our muscles, our fascia, everything is so smart, right? So if my knee's hurting and I push it, then my body learns, okay, well, maybe this is not a pain to really pay attention to. So then fast forward to 2 weeks later, my knee's still hurting. And I tell myself, well, I've been I've had this knee pain forever. It's fine. It's nothing new. Then a month later, then it really starts to talk at me, right? And basically to say that the longer you go not listening to your body, yes, in some way you can condition it, but also at the same time, there will be a time when you can't. So I've heard a lot of podcasts about dancers who are like, I've had, back pain for a while and I just didn't, I just thought it was just part of the daily like crick. Like I just needed to warm up and it'll go away. But it's been like a month and it's not. And then all of a sudden your body doesn't, I don't think it has two extremes. So it has the beginning, my knee's hurting, for a month or so, continues that way. And then all of a sudden you're out. It's almost like the body doesn't do, like it doesn't like to negotiate. It negotiates for a little bit and then it takes you out. So you've had back pain. I've been trying to tell you that your knee's hurting and you haven't been listening. So guess what? Now
Game's over.
game's over. You dislocate your knee. Game's over. Like it's so crazy. But I don't know. I'm going on a rant now.
No, I think that's true, because oftentimes when people speak about injuries that were really like a traumatic event, like maybe you the kind of back injury where like you can't walk for a few weeks afterwards or something that's like comes out of the blue. That's usually what they say. It came out of the blue. Right. But I'm sure there are signs, if we're receptive and if we're building a relationship to our body, where we are building our skill at hearing the small changes and the small signs and building our intuition, then I think we might be making more educated guesses rather than gambling when we're like, my body can take a beating. We might actually be like, I have some evidence that I've felt these exact things before and I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay. I know in a perfect world I'd rest today, but I've got a competition I've been preparing for however many months and I think I should go for it. Versus, just kind of being very blind to all of those signals and then one day you really do some damage and it takes you by surprise. Yeah, it seems like there should be something in between.
Yeah, teaching your body to like listening to what your body needs and wants. So informing your body.
Okay, great. I think we touched upon some really nice subjects about how Gyrotonic helps dancers, right? It was nice talking to you guys.
It was nice talking to you.
I guess next time we meet in the urban body.
Matching tower.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.